The Wisconsin Badgers have made their hire at receiver coach. Is this finally the one that is the right fit for Wisconsin? Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network. Thank you for helping us get there. I'm coming to you live from Birmingham, down here on work, but really do appreciate, as always, the support, helping build the channel, and I really appreciate all the everydayers, the people that are building this community. Thank you for being here with us. The Wisconsin Badgers, let's put the banner up here so you guys can see some of the details here. Have reportedly, saw this reported on several places, have hired a new receivers coach, Confesor. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Was a Jacksonville Jaguars coach last year. Has coached in a bunch of places. Has coached at Wake Forest, Air Force, Rhode Island. He was with the Kansas City Chiefs for a little bit. So he's had a long journey. He's not that old. It's interesting. I want to get into that in a second and talk about the upside and maybe the concern with that. But they needed a new coach. Coach Reed went to join the Atlanta Falcons. Let's point out that was a promotion for him. That's a great job. That's what you want. You want coaches that are poachable. And the Atlanta Falcons came in, and it's a bummer. I really like Coach Reed. I thought he had recruiting chops. I wanted to see him grow here, but the Falcons came in, took him. So they they go with Confesor, who I think I'm pronouncing that name right. I'll be honest, I don't know anything about him. But let me tell you what I like and what I don't like, and then I would love to get your comments. The first thing that I like is he was a baller. He was a baller at Holy Cross. Confesor still, as a receiver, still the all-time leader there with 2,352 receiving yards. He had 5,300 career all-purpose yards. So this is a guy that was a receiver as a player, but also a really good special teams player. It makes you wonder if he can help out in both spots, if he can be a mentor for, let's be honest, special teams has not been the strength of the Wisconsin Badgers for a couple of years, although kick return has been okay. But maybe this is a guy who can come in, be a receivers coach, but also mentor special teams a little bit. I like the fact that he has NFL experience. That's something both with the Chiefs and the Jaguars that I feel like you can sell that to recruits. I feel like that has some pedigree. I don't think the NFL generally hires people who are unqualified coaches. So to me, that is a plus for sure. Here's my worry. And in the comments, let me know what you think. Good, bad, indifferent, wait and see. You love it, you hate it, anything in between, and whatever else you want tonight. This is kind of a free-for-all show. So throw whatever question, comment, thought you have in the chat. Well, let's chop it up tonight, live from Birmingham, Alabama. I'm only a couple IPAs in. I don't love the fact that he's moved around a ton. Okay, so you have a guy who, I got off to the side, have seen me looking away. I don't obviously have my regular setup here. So he coached with Kansas City, 2012, 2013, then University of Rhode Island. He was there for a while. He was there for 5 years, but then he spent a year or two with Holy Cross. He spent a year or two with Wake Forest, and he spent a year or two with Jacksonville. Then he's moving on to Wisconsin. I think this is a spot, and this staff in general needs some continuity, in my opinion. This staff in general needs some consistency, in my opinion. And this is the third, I believe, receivers coach for Luke Fickell. So you had Mike Brown, who came over initially. Then he had Jordan Reed, who's now with the Falcons. And again, that's not on Luke Fickell. Like, Jordan Reed went from Wisconsin to the NFL. That's called career progression. That's great for him. I'm stoked for him. And now you're on another receivers coach. You've had multiple offensive line coaches. You had a couple offensive coordinators, obviously, a couple running backs coaches, a couple safeties guys. Like, you just need consistency on this staff. You've had a couple defensive line coaches. It feels like it would be great if you could find a guy that could stick at receiver for a while and hang there. And this is a coach who's moved around a lot. That would be my big concern. Is it feels like a guy that is stepping stone away from his next job. That being said, I like the pedigree. I like that he's been in the NFL. I like that he's been at a real college in Wake Forest. I like that he's been at Air Force. So he coached at Air Force. Let me tell you, when Coach Whitlow got hired and he had coached at a service academy, one of the best things about that to me was if you coach at a service academy, you understand culture. You have to. Otherwise, they're not going to hire you. Air Force, Navy, the Army, those places, the academies, they're going to hire people that are high culture coaches first. And I like the fact that he's experienced at the Air Force Academy, experience at a place that struggles to develop receivers and throw the ball. I think that's a benefit. He's coming into a place where he's going to have a little more to work with, and he understands culture because he was at the Air Force Academy, I believe, for 4 years. You really, I just want to double check that. Yep, for 4 years. You're going to pick up culture there. I mean, you can't help but pick up culture. Let me tell you, and a quick plug to our military and our veterans and our officers. Those are unbelievable people. And just being around them, you're going to pick up culture. So him being in those spots, I like that. I like that he coached in Air Force. I like that he was a baller. This is a guy who was prolific as a college receiver. There's a lot to like here. It's out of left field. I don't think anybody really saw it coming. That doesn't mean it's a bad hire. And again, in the chat, throw any comment, question, thought, football, basketball, anywhere in between. Wisconsin rowing. If you have a comment on the rowing team, which looks strong coming up this year, throw all those in the chat. We'll get into anything tonight. It's just kind of an open-ended show, but I definitely wanted to start here. On paper, I like the hire. I like the hire a lot. I like where he's been. I like players that were successful in college because I think they relate better. I like coaches that have coached at the academies, and he has been in the NFL with the Chiefs and the Jaguars. Those places, NFL in general, doesn't suffer fools. So it feels like a good hire to me. Time will tell, but I also think this staff, and one of the keys, one of the reasons the Indiana Hoosiers have been so good under Curt Cignetti is he's kept his staff together, right? He's built a staff over time that has generally stayed together and not gone anywhere. And because of that, they built continuity. They built consistency with how they teach their kids, with what they prioritize, with how they build culture. I really think we need to do that here. Luke Fickell needs to be able to do that. And it's not easy. Some guys he's losing to Notre Dame, and he's losing to the NFL. But having some continuity at offensive line, at offensive coordinator, at running back, at receiver, I think it's going to make a big difference. And hopefully this is a coach that can come in, he can stay for a while. If that happens, I think it could be a home run. I don't know for sure, but you look at the track record and the places he's been, it's not easy to get a job in the academies. You have to pass some hurdles there. It's not easy to coach at Wake Forest. It's a high academic, high culture place. It's not easy to get receivers jobs in the NFL. All those things tell me this is probably a pretty good coach on the whiteboard, and it's probably a really good coach in the interview room. If you go to the interview room and the Air Force Academy hires you, that means you probably crushed the intangible portion of the job. Same with Wake Forest. Wake Forest is a high academic institution. Those things matter. It feels like probably a good culture fit. Now, can he coach and will he stay? Those will be the questions. Can he recruit? I think certainly you can sell the fact that you've been an NFL coach, that you're young, you're dynamic, you were successful in college. Feels like a guy that on paper, without knowing him, feels like probably a pretty good recruiter, right? Again, can you get a guy like this to stay for 3 or 4 years? I think that's the key. Building some continuity on this coaching staff. Jagavi says, having worked in Jacksonville and how Lawrence developed and how the passing game worked, the question is a drop in production with Thomas is a thing to dive into. Yeah, it's definitely interesting to look into the NFL and if that offense was productive. I think in general, the receivers coach is probably not the most influential part of whether or not the offense is productive on that level. But it's something to look into for sure. I think connections, having coached in the South, having coached in the South in a couple different spots with Wake Forest and Jacksonville, I think that's your next point here. Jagavi, his recruiting in the South will pay dividends. He's going to have connections there because he's been coaching down there for a while. So a lot of receiving talent in the South. Going to be interesting to see how that works out. Michael says, I like to hire from a development standpoint. I hate it from a recruiting standpoint. I mean, I hear that. Like Coach Reed, when he came in, I had several people tell me this is going to be a really good recruiter for you. And this is something that I could back up. Some of the receiver targets we were in on last year, they were very high on Coach Reed. Coach Reed was really good with players, developing connections. We have no idea, quite frankly, if this is going to be, if Ari Confesor is going to be a good recruiting coach. We don't know. We don't know how he's going to develop connections, but I think he has the right on paper resume to be a pretty good recruiter. He's coached in spots with a lot of talent. He's been in some interesting places. He's been successful as a player. And you got to think too, Luke Fickell, the staff, they're not going to hire somebody at certain spots that can't recruit. I think some receiving coach, running back, cornerbacks coach, probably offensive line. Certain spots have to be good recruiters on your staff. I feel like receiver is one of those spots. So I'm guessing they bought off on that, the staff. Again, if you have any questions, thoughts, throw them in the chat. We got a few people here tonight. I'm coming to you live from Birmingham. I think it's a good hire on paper. Time will tell. I think the biggest concern for me, to recap it, is he's bounced around a lot. And that seems to be a bit of an MO for a lot of coaches we bring in. They're either young or they've moved around a lot in their career. Big Nell was like that. You can go back and look at some other coaches. I think some continuity on staff, and you're never going to keep everybody all the time, but some continuity on staff is a goal that we should have. And I think it's something that would be beneficial, to be completely honest. But that's also hard to do. I'm interested to see how this plays out. Certainly, I feel like this is a good time to get somebody in. You're about to start spring ball. You still have a lot of time in this 27 class to build those connections and start recruiting. This feels like a pretty good time in general to bring a receivers coach in. It's interesting, right? It's interesting. And I'm curious to see how he does. Let's shift it really quick to basketball. I had somebody reach out to me, and we're just kind of doing an open show again. So please, if you have any questions, thoughts, shoot them out here. I don't know how long we'll go tonight. This isn't going to be a normal show. I'm in a hotel in Birmingham doing kind of my adult job. So if you have anything you want to chop up, throw it in the chat. If not, we'll just keep rolling here. Somebody sent me a question on basketball, and the question was, how much credit should Greg Gard get for adjusting kind of his coaching style? And I don't think we talk about this enough. And I think coaches generally don't change their stripes. And Greg Gard is a guy who coached under Bo Ryan. They coached a very specific style, defense first, value possessions, don't push the rock, play slow, play efficient, hit the post, run the swing. And in the course of 3 years, Greg Gard has developed one of the most open offenses in the Big Ten. He's developed an offense that has taken players that previous to Wisconsin have struggled, have been decent, have been okay, and they've all hit career highs at Wisconsin. AJ Storr, Johnny Davis he developed, Nick Boyd, John Tonje, Braden Carrington. Greg Gard does not get nearly enough credit. Not nearly enough credit for being able to adjust midstream. And some of that's Kirk Penny, for sure, coming in. But most coaches don't listen. Most coaches don't want to listen to their assistants when they say, let's change this up. Let's do something different. Greg Gard gets a ton of credit for that. And when I was talking to my buddy, Pavel is not apparently interested in this. That's totally cool. Love Pavel. He's been comments on shows for a couple years now. But I'm telling you, I don't think Greg Gard gets enough credit for having the lack of ego necessary to adjust his coaching style. That's a real thing. When you've coached a certain way for a long time, you've taught it a certain way. That means you've preached certain things. You've gone to clinics and talked about it. You've talked to other coaches in the state. You've coached certain players a certain way. And to adjust like this multiple years into a successful career. By the way, this is a successful coach who is saying, no, we're going to change everything we've done. And I'm going to be more hands-off, because that's what you have to do if you're going to play more up-tempo. You're going to shoot more threes. I think he deserves a tremendous amount of credit, quite frankly, for making this adjustment, for quite honestly becoming a coach that's a little more hands-off. That's a difficult thing to do. So I think he needs to give a lot of credit for that. He doesn't get it. People don't really talk about it. But imagine whatever career track you're in. Let me frame it a different way. Whatever career track you're in. I'm an IT guy. It's my adult job, right? But whatever you're in, whether you're a truck driver, a drafter, a craftsman, a plumber, imagine multiple years into a successful career track for you. 10 years in and you've been doing great. Suddenly changing everything you do. Changing the entire process that you've built your career on and saying, I'm going to do it a little different. And going out on the limb and trying it. It's something that not a lot of coaches do. It's a difficult thing for people to do. He's a defensive coach by trade, and this has become an offensive team. It's just really interesting to me, and it's something not a lot of coaches do. Michael says Gard doesn't get enough credit for the Renaissance. I completely agree. Sean Campbell, I've been genuinely impressed with Gard for adjusting. I was on the fire Gard train 2 years ago. Yeah, this is a different coach. It's Greg Gard 2.0. It's Windows XP going to Windows 7. It's the 1988 Ford Mustang going into like the 2000 Ford Mustang. I don't remember when they changed the body style on the Mustangs, but you remember those boxy Mustangs in the 80s that were just ugly but efficient? And then they kind of turned into that sporty look in the mid-90s. That's Greg Gard. He's a sporty Mustang right now. Not calling Bo Ryan and his style the ugly Mustang either. for the record. It was very successful, but I think it's really impressive. And I'll tell you the other thing that it does. And again, if anybody has any comments or thoughts or questions, throw them in here. We'll take the show whatever direction, and we probably won't go the full 30 minutes. But the other thing it does is it allows you to recruit differently. I had multiple players, including a guy that signed at Wisconsin, by the way, told me that style's not interesting to me. Speaking of the old Wisconsin Badger style, like I don't really want to play there. I don't want to go there. I don't want to play that style. I've had another player who did sign with Wisconsin tell me the same thing. Like, I don't love that style. Now, if you're Greg Gard, if you're Krabbenhoff, if you're this staff, Isaac Waddajo, who's kind of the recruiting guy, you can go to an open gym. You can go to an AAU tournament and say, hey, we shoot threes. We score 80 to 90 a game. You know, we win games by dropping 90 on Michigan. We beat Michigan State and Illinois by, playing exciting offense and playing modern up-tempo basketball. Players want to do that. I think it helps in recruiting. I think it helps in-state recruiting. I think it helps land athletes. I think you get a guy like Nick Boyd, partially because of the style you play now. It's all a credit to Greg Gard. Chigavi says, with all the in-state talent in 2027, how many do the Badgers have a chance with? That's a great question. I think they sit pretty well for a couple of them, to be completely honest. I know the staff has prioritized it. The idea that the staff doesn't prioritize in-state recruiting is not true. It is a tremendous 2027 class, as you point out. I think they're in the running for a couple of them, to be completely honest. And they need to. Like, I think if you can get a couple of in-state kids, athletic shooters, I think it would be a tremendous coup for Greg Gard and the Badgers. All right, I think we'll probably wrap it up there. Again, just kind of a quick show. Wanted to talk about the receivers coach. Thoughts on the pedigree. I like the journey. I like his ability to probably recruit, although I'm not sure. But again, I want continuity. I think this staff needs to prioritize it. In many places, they haven't been able to do that for whatever reason. I think it'd be a big deal if they could keep this new receivers coach for a couple years. And let's also talk about the challenge this receivers coach is walking into. This is in a completely new room. It hasn't been that productive for a couple years. A lot of youth, a lot of transfers. This is quite the challenge. So game on. Madison's an incredible place to coach. You're coaching the Big Ten. But this is also a really interesting receiver room you're walking into. A lot of new pieces, a depth chart that's completely in flux. It's going to be interesting for sure. So on Wisconsin, again, just a quick show. Tomorrow we got our show coming up with the offensive line coach of Brady Beckenhuis, the 2026 offensive lineman that's signed out of Massachusetts. Really high upside kid. That show I think you guys are going to enjoy. That's coming up tomorrow. And then we have our game recap on Wednesday, Nick Osen on Thursday, a loaded week on Locked On Badgers. Michael Garner says, I think we have the best chance with Davis. Davis is an interesting player, two-way guy. Yeah, would love him. Would absolutely love him. It's a loaded in-state class for sure. And I think we're going to get into that. So I don't want to talk too much in-state recruiting because I think we're going to get into that heavily with Osen coming up later this week. But Davis would be a tremendous get for Greg Gard and the Badgers and a guy they're prioritizing on Wisconsin. And we will definitely talk to you guys tomorrow.